A war, not just fought with bombs, but with history itself. A story that in the eyes of the world was supposed to end in 1991, but reignited in 2022 with a new and fierce flame. Why is the ongoing brutal conflict between Ukraine and Russia so long and complex? Is it merely a clash between two nations, or a battle between two civilizations, two ideologies, and two distinct identities? Let's delve into this entire saga, from the era of the Soviet Union to the year 2025. Every major turning point, every political move, and every moment where each drop of blood etched this history even deeper. The year 1917 saw the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, followed by the formation of the Soviet Union in 1922. Around the same time, Ukraine became a part of this new superstate. But Ukraine wasn't just another province for the Soviet Union. It was its backbone. Fertile lands, massive agricultural output, heavy industries, and strategically vital military bases made Ukraine indispensable. However, the Ukrainian people paid a heavy price, the loss of their identity under the shadow of Russian dominance. In 1932, during Stalin's reign, came the Holodomor, a man-made famine that claimed the lives of millions of Ukrainians. Grain was forcibly seized from the fields, villages were left deserted, and deep wounds were carved into the heart of Ukraine. This hatred, this pain, became etched forever in the pages of history. 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed, and Ukraine gained its independence. But with independence began a new struggle, a search for identity and the beginning of a true geopolitical chess game. Ukraine, which Russia always wanted to keep within its sphere of influence, slowly started leaning toward the West, toward the European Union and NATO. And Russia didn't take this lightly. In 2004, Ukraine witnessed the Orange Revolution, a public uprising against pro-Russian leader Viktor Yanukovych. The country split ideologically, one half looking toward the West, the other under Russia's shadow. In 2010, Yanukovych returned as president, and Ukraine drifted closer to Russia once again. But in 2013, when he rejected an agreement with the European Union, a new wave of protests erupted, the Euromaidan movement. On cold winter nights, Kyiv's Maidan Square burned with the fire of democracy and change. In 2014, Viktor Yanukovych was finally ousted from power. Russia saw this as a direct threat to its interests. In response, it annexed Crimea, the same Crimea that holds immense strategic value for Russia in the Black Sea. At the same time, pro-Russian rebels in the Donbas region were armed and supported. Western countries imposed economic sanctions on Russia, but Moscow didn't back down. This was the first major signal. For Russia, Ukraine wasn't just a neighbor, it was a red line. February 24, 2022. History took a sharp turn once again. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Moscow's justification? Ukraine has turned Nazi. Russian-speaking people are being killed, and we must protect our own. But the reality was stark. Tanks rolled in, missiles rained down, and bullets flew. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mariupol, death and destruction spread across every corner. Millions of civilians were forced to flee their homes. Thousands of innocents lost their lives, and all of Europe found itself under the looming shadow of a new war. But Ukraine did not give up. President Volodymyr Zelensky, once a comedian, rose to become a wartime hero. The entire world rallied behind Ukraine. The US, UK, European Union, and NATO countries sent weapons, funding, and training. Yet, they didn't step directly into the war. A wave of economic sanctions hit Russia, but Moscow kept fighting, using its energy exports and global alliances to stay in the game. This war is no longer just a battle between Ukraine and Russia. It has turned into a shadow war between the US and Russia. Russia received support from China, Iran, and North Korea, while Western nations provided Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets, drones, air defense systems, and heavy weaponry. Yet no ray of peace was in sight. The battlefield wasn't just filled with landmines and bullets. It became a war of diplomacy, cyber attacks, and propaganda. In 2023, Russia captured a large portion of the Donbas region, but Ukraine's counterattacks grew fiercer. Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Zaporizhzhia, every battleground bore the dark scars of war. In 2024, Putin returned to power in Russia, while in the United States, support for Ukraine began to wane. Western fatigue was clearly visible, but on the ground, the situation kept worsening. 2025. The war has now entered its third year. Signs of exhaustion and dwindling resources are becoming evident in Ukraine, while Russia too is facing heavy military losses. Millions remain displaced, scattered as refugees across Europe and other parts of the world. Global inflation, an energy crisis, and widespread uncertainty have gripped the entire planet. The United Nations, Turkey, and China attempted mediation. A 30-day ceasefire was proposed, but without Russia's agreement, no concrete outcome emerged. Even the Russia-Ukraine peace talks in Turkey ended without resolution. In this prolonged war, it's the common civilians who have suffered the most. According to the United Nations 2025 report, Russian forces committed serious violations against children for the third consecutive year. 94 children killed, 577 injured, and repeated attacks on schools and hospitals. This is no longer just a war between two armies or two governments. It has become one of the greatest challenges to humanity itself. The war has intensified on the economic front as well. In June 2025, the UK and the US imposed strict sanctions on Russia's energy sector to cripple its ability to finance the war. Pressure mounted on Russia's oil and gas exports, but the disruption in global supply chains triggered a deepening energy crisis worldwide. Now the question is, what lies ahead? Is this war the beginning of a new world order? Will this clash between the US and Russia drag the world toward a third world war? Or will both exhausted nations finally take steps toward peace? This war between Ukraine and Russia is not just about land. It's a battle of identity, history, and dominance. For both nations, it has become a matter of survival. Global politics, diplomacy, and military strategy all are deeply entangled in this conflict. You've just seen a glimpse of the history and military strategies behind this conflict. But the real clash in this war goes beyond bombs and bullets. It's a battle of mindsets and ideologies. So let's now understand, how do Ukraine and Russia each see this war through their own lens? Ukraine's perspective: freedom, identity, and a Western future. Ukraine now sees itself as an independent nation, determined to step out of Russia's shadow and carve out a European identity. It seeks security, economic growth, and democratic stability by aligning with the European Union and NATO. A large section of the Ukrainian public believes that Russia has repeatedly interfered in their sovereignty, whether it's the annexation of Crimea or the war in Donbas. The 2014 Maidan Uprising was not just against a government, it was a vision for a new Ukraine, a nation that stands with the West, makes its own decisions, and defends its democracy. Among Ukrainian youth, nationalist sentiment is at an all-time high. Their belief is clear. If we don't fight now, we'll lose our identity forever. Russia's perspective: security, legacy, and global balance. On the other side, Russia views this entire conflict through the lens of national security. It believes that if Ukraine joins NATO, Western and US forces would be stationed right at its doorstep. Russia's stance is, we're not just defending our borders, we're defending our civilization and our history. It considers Crimea to be historically its own. In Donbas, it sees itself as the protector of Russian-speaking communities. Russia also argues that the US and the West have long intervened in countries like Iraq, Libya, and Syria. But when Russia acts in its own sphere of influence, it's labeled an aggressor. Vladimir Putin believes the world should not be unipolar, dominated by a single superpower. Instead, he advocates for a multipolar world, where Russia plays a key role in maintaining global balance, not just America. That's why this war is not just about a border. It's a clash of two ideologies, two visions. On one side, a Ukraine looking toward the West, and on the other, a Russia determined to preserve its legacy. What do you think? Is the end of this war near, or is it going to become one of the longest conflicts in history? Don't forget to share your opinion in the comments, and share this video to help the story reach more people. For more in-depth geopolitical stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Because history, until it is truly understood, keeps repeating itself.